Then check this out.
Okay, so look, we've expressed concerns over China's potential use of software platforms that could endanger or threaten America's safety and their national security. So that is the president's concern. That is why we have called on Congress to take action. We see a bipartisan piece of legislation that you know that we are supporting. It's called the Restrict Act, as you all know and been covering. And so that's the president's main priority, to make sure when it comes to their safety, when it comes to their security, when it comes to our national security, that those things are protected. And so that has been the president's focus over the last couple of years.
Really?
Last month, the president said he wasn't sure if the U.S. should ban TikTok when he was asked about this. Now, the administration seems to be hardening its stance. You're backing this legislation, as you mentioned. We've learned, now warning that a possible ban could be at risk here. What changed?
All right.
So look, when it comes to SERRIOUS, which is, I'm not going to get ahead of SERRIOUS, they're the ones who are reviewing this, this particular software and app, TikTok obviously, so not going to get ahead of their process. There's a process here. We try to stay away from that process. Again, going to support the bipartisan legislation that I've just spoke to.
Not a joke.
Look, the bottom line is that when it comes to potential threats to our national security, when it comes to the safety of Americans, when it comes to their privacy, we're going to speak out, and we're going to be very clear about that, and the president has been the last 2 years. And so we're asking Congress to act. We're asking Congress to move forward with this bipartisan legislation, the Restrict Act, as I just mentioned, and we're going to continue to do so.
And just one more on this. China says that the U.S. hasn't presented evidence that this app threatens U.S. national security. They say that this is simply about suppressing foreign companies. Is there evidence that the U.S. has that has been presented?
You sure about that?
Look, what I can say is SERRIOUS has a process that they're going through. We're going to let them go through their process. We have concerns, as we have said many times before, about this particular software platforms, and so we take the national security very seriously. The president takes that very seriously. The safety of Americans very seriously. The privacy of Americans very seriously.
Okay.
And so we're not going to get ahead of the review, but certainly we again support this bipartisan legislation that we're seeing out of Congress.
Just continuing on the questions about the banking sector, so the Biden administration has expressed a lot of concern in the past about consolidation in other sectors. You've spoken about meatpacking, shipping, ocean shipping, oil companies. Are you worried that this crisis surrounding several regional banks could lead to a consolidation and a concentration in the larger banking sector? And then I'll have another one.
So promoting competition in the American economy, we see that as a priority. You hear the president say these words I'm about to repeat right now, which is capitalism without competition isn't capitalism. And so that is something that you've heard the president say multiple times. His executive order on this particular issue, promoting competition, specifically encourages the Justice Department in consultation with the Fed, the FDIC, and Comptroller of the Currency to revitalize merger and oversight. So again, this is something that the president believes in. He believes that we have to have capitalism, and you can't have capitalism without competition, and that isn't capitalism. And so I'll just leave it there. And it isn't, again, the last thing I would say is an important part of our American economy.
Ooh, boy, it's hard to be woke.
I mean, the question is, are you concerned and what can you do about it? As consumers are now making decisions, having seen what happened with SVB and with Signature, what's happening now with First Republic, I mean, what tools do you have to push back against a further concentration in this critical sector?
Look, as it relates to specific banks and institutions, I would refer you to the relevant banking regulators. So I'd leave that there, and that's why the president. But more broadly, that's why the president took the actions that he did over the weekend. Remember, he directed his Treasury Secretary and the NSC director to come up with a plan on how to deal with what we were seeing with SVB, the Silicon Valley Bank, and so they took action. And now, what we believe and what you heard from the Secretary today, which is decisive and forceful actions were taken by the government to strengthen public confidence in our banking system. So there should be confidence in our banking system. No taxpayer money is being used or put at risk with this action. And lastly, she said our banking system remains sound and that Americans can feel confident that their deposits will be there when they need them. This week's actions demonstrate our resolute commitment to ensure the depositor savings remain safe. Again, this is something that happened and occurred at the President's direction, and we want to make sure that Americans do indeed feel confident. I'm not going to speak to any specific bank, as you just asked me about the particular bank in California. We clearly are going to be monitoring.
Okay, and then just on the international front, on the banking sector, we've seen trouble now with Credit Suisse. The Swiss authorities are stepping in, offering a credit line. What had been discussed there was also a further consolidation. So the biggest bank in Switzerland, UBS, stepping in to aid Credit Suisse. Would you have concerns about that on a global scale if you start to see this movement, kind of happening globally?
So, look, we're monitoring the situation. I know the Treasury has been in touch with their Swiss counterparts, which is important. And so we're glad that the Swiss Central Bank provided a reassurance in the form of a loan facility yesterday. But I will say that what we're seeing currently with the Credit Suisse is a distinct issue, and it's a problem. And its problems are not related to the current economic situation, the current economic environment. Again, this is a distinct issue that we're currently seeing, and we're having the Treasury secretaries, the Treasury, I should say, more broadly, is having conversation with their counter.
It's over.
The point, I just want to see what the Biden administration's policy on this is. Do you discourage further consolidation in banking globally or
I would
the US?
I would refer you to the Department of Treasury. They have been in close contact with their Swiss counterparts as it relates to this particular issue, this particular bank. But again, I want to be very clear. What we're seeing with the Credit Suisse is a distinct situation. It does not speak to the current economic environment that we're in.
Thanks, Karine. You referenced the Dodd-Frank rules just a few moments ago. Do you believe that Silicon Valley, excuse me, do you believe that Silicon Valley's bank's failure could have been averted had those Dodd-Frank rules not been rolled back during the previous administration?
So right now, and the president said this in his remarks on Monday, that we got to get a full accounting of what happened. We need to know exactly what happened so we know who to hold accountable here. Right now, his economic team, the president's economic team, is focused on stabilizing the financial system and protecting depositors, not investors. We've been very clear about this. But again, it is not 2008. The banking system is far more resilient on a better foundation thanks to the tough requirements that were put in place by the Obama-Biden administration. I just said this moments ago. In 2018, we saw what the Trump administration did. They did roll back some of those tough requirements. But again, we need to see exactly, do a full review, get a full accounting of what occurred, so we can make sure to hold those to account.